Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another installment of Flyer Gonna Flyer, episode 69. Nice. I'm sorry, I knew I was going to that one. Nice. But episode 69, this is going to be a good episode. We're going over last week's games as per usual. Good week for the Flyers. A very nice rebound after we were very doom and gloom here last week. Their 6-week game losing streak came to an end. Took 5 out of a possible 6 points on the road trip. Actually, could have been easily all 6 if Garnett Hathaway could have just shot the puck in an empty net. But besides the point, 5 out of a possible 6 points on a road trip. Fantastic there. We're going to be going over state of the rebuild. Give our opinions on how Danny has done so far. Talk about thoroughly. Will it be positive? Will it be negative? Will it be neutral? We'll see. We're also going to be going over the Flyers' need of a center, and if there's anyone in the market they might be potentially going after. Also, Owen Tippett has been on a fucking tear lately, and it's time to give this guy his flowers, especially after last night's game, coming as we're recording this on a Saturday compared to our usual Sunday today. But Owen Tippett coming off of a 4-point hat trick against the Avalanche. Who the hell saw that coming? But yeah, he's been on fire lately. Give him some flowers just collectively in general. And then finally, we'll go over next week's games. I got 4 of them, and it's a massive week coming up. Joining me, as always, I got my 2 gracious co-hosts, starting with the man to my bottom right-hand corner. You know him, you love him, Mr. Eric Martino. Eric, how you doing today, bud?
I'm cold, guys. I'm cold.
That's all I'm doing. We're about to get 2 feet of snow. I'm not excited about shoveling it all.
Not much snow, but God, is it frigid outside. Yeah, but it's okay, guys. It's winter. Winter's cold. And you know what's played on cold surfaces? Hockey. We're here to talk about hockey. Let's get this done. Let's go.
It's hockey weather. You're absolutely right about that, man. It's here. When I woke up this morning, it was 3 degrees Fahrenheit for our U.S. listeners. For our Canadian listeners, it's probably like negative 20 degrees Celsius or something like that. I don't know the exact amount, but it's cold. It is freaking cold. And then, as always, Mr. Positive himself, the seasoned veteran. You know him. You love him, Mr. Jamey Bascow. Jamey, how you doing today, bud?
Aloha. I feel like I'm in Hawaii, and there's a snowstorm heading. Dude, it makes it even much better to wear my, Hawaiian gear. So I am, and I'm going to put on my Hawaiian shirt. I'm thinking of the warm weather, the warm climates, and stuff. So, but you can tell the Flyers are winning. Eric has a nice Flyers hat there with his Flyers banner in the background. Alex, fired up. So the Flyers are doing a good job. They're better than Habs.
I heard that. I resent that.
Take that little barb every time.
You gotta kick him.
Jamey is the only human being I know that can make positive and be excited for the snowstorm with a Hawaiian shirt. I swear that.
And a jab at the Habs at the same time.
With my leg, out there. Dance.
All right, let's get right into this, gentlemen. So when we last talked on the show, the Flyers are in the midst of a 6-game losing streak. Well, that losing streak is over. And the team, to my surprise at least, because both me and Rick predicted in last week's games, I think they would go 0-3. I didn't see them beating any of these teams. Well, they beat 2 of them and probably should have beat all 3 of them. 2 in 1 week. Took 5 out of a possible 6 points. And they just came off of putting belt to ass on the best team in the league in their barn. Who in the hell saw that coming? Jamey, let me start with you. What did you think of this week?
Roller coaster. To be honest with you, first off, after they won, a tough game, what was it, Monday night? I was like, okay, all right, who is this team? And then they had that blunder to the Utah Mammoth, and although they did get a point, it's still a loss in my book. Like, I'm sorry. I'm tired of that points, for a loss in overtime anyway. I think that needs to go away. So to me, that was a massive loss. Not only did they squander a 3-0 lead, but the blunder by Garnett Hathaway, the dumb penalties, that they took. And then you went into the Colorado Avalanche. I was like, there's no way they're going to beat this team. Absolutely no way. Then they were up 3-0. 3-0 again. 3-0 again. And then I'm like, oh man, it's time for me to go to bed. And then you look and it's 3-3. They squandered another 3-0 lead, right? And they tied it up.
I think it was 2-0, and then the Avs tied it. If I remember correctly.
I thought it was 3, but nonetheless, they squandered the lead again. And I was like, oh man, they're just going to come up and just kick the Flyers' butts. So after the second, I'm going to be honest, I went to bed. I was like, man, there's not. And then you look, and they're up 7-3. They won the game 7-3. I went to bed. I'm going to be honest. I worked, overtime the night before, and I was like, man, there's no way I can stay up. And I did. I fell asleep, and I can't believe they won. To be honest with you, I had to go back. I watched, this morning, Owen Tippett, phenomenal game. One thing that I did see, and this is why the roller coaster aspect, Rick Tocchet said it right last night in his post-game presser. I thought that was one of his best pressers in a long time. He did say, you just can't take this many penalties. Even though they won the game, he was like, give kudos to the penalty kill because you cannot take these type of penalties against, the best team in the league or at all. So I give kudos to Rick Tocchet there. I've been, I think we've all been on him a little bit, but when he does something well, I give him credit. And that post-game presser, I really thought he hit the nail on the head there. He realizes the amount of penalties they're taking. Is he trying to help them? Yes. It's more, I'm going to be honest, it looks to me like the Flyers are a little tired when they start to take these penalties, and rightfully so. I mean, lack of oxygen, you're playing in higher elevation in Colorado. It made sense to take these type of penalties, these, stick penalties and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, what turned out a doom and gloom week after the Utah game turned out, it was like, okay, who is this team? And that's, I'll get to that in rebuild, so I'll save that. It's the inconsistent Philadelphia Flyers yet again. No one could tell me otherwise. No one, absolutely no one, no pundit, no nothing, had the Flyers winning last night. I mean, that line was, the line before the game was minus 300. That's what they felt like the Flyers last night.
I didn't either. I had them losing 6-2, to be honest with you. I was quite surprised, and I am quite pleasantly happy. Eric, how about you? What did you think of this week?
Yeah, I know. Like, it was same thing like Jamey. Like, it was a roller coaster. Like, a roller coaster of just of emotions. Like, the Vegas game, like, look, the Flyers didn't play great. They really didn't play that great against Vegas. Sam Urson, and got to give props this week to Sam. Like, I'm sorry, like, we've shit on him. We've, like, put him down and everything. And, like, rightfully so. He just hasn't been great. Like, but he came up with some key saves, especially in that Vegas game, to give the Flyers a chance. TK with a couple goals. Big win. Like, finally broke a streak. Like, because also, like, a lot of people, like, maybe didn't realize, like, even especially in that, like, extended losing streak that we were on for, like, was it 6 games or whatever, we played a lot of hot teams on, like, really big time winning streaks.
Oh yeah.
So, like, I think even Buffalo, I think they had lost like 1 game in 13 or something when we played them.
Pittsburgh was hot. Tampa. They always
Tampa was, I think, had won 9 in a row or something before the first game. And anyway, it was something crazy. So it was just, that also was just really nice to see, like, the Flyers actually break like 2 streaks broken, their losing streak broken, and the fucking and Vegas's win streak broken. So that was honestly really nice. The Utah game, man, yeah, like, what a collapse, like, that we should have won that game. Like, it was just a comedy of errors and like a lot of, like, look, unfortunately, like, look, a lot of veterans just making mistakes at the wrong time. And one thing, like, I'll say, like, I find it kind of funny was, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was before that game or before the Colorado area. I can't really remember. When Tocchet was basically saying something like, same thing with, like, the penalties, like, we gotta be taking stupid penalties, or else, like, certain play, he didn't mention certain, like, the players or player that he was talking about, but basically, like, hinting that there's gonna be a scratch, and, like, but the penalties continued in that game and even in the Colorado game, so we'll see what comes out of that. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah, like, that's a game that they just blew, and they actually played really well. That was so heartbreaking about that game, is they played so well for, like, let's say 50 minutes, and it was just like, what was weird, if you notice, like, when we were up 3-0, and then Tippett takes that shot. And then it was like right after he takes that shot is when the team just like
the check he took up high. Yeah.
Like the team just all of a sudden stopped playing, and that for like 8 minutes, and then like Tippett comes back in the game, and all of a sudden they take off again. It was just really weird how that worked out. But yeah, no, just weird game overall. Really sucks. And like going in, then you have Colorado next. Like you're expecting to get like destroyed to that team. Like, come on, like we're facing the Avalanche. These guys, like you said, 1 game loss at home in regulation or whatever, and I think 2 on the road. So it's like I don't expect good things. And what really impressed me in that game, secondary scoring. Like a lot lately has been the Zegras line. Zegras, Konechny, Devo, that's just carrying the offense up for this team, just carrying the offense. So it was really nice. Mishkov had a 3-point game. Barkey had a 2-point game. The Tippett with the hat trick. I think he finishes with 4 points on the night. So that's what we need. If we want to be competitive, if we want to win, if we want to make the playoffs, we need balanced scoring. That's the way this team has to do it. We don't have right now, like maybe Mishkov will be one day or Martin will be one day, but right now we don't have that elite player to carry the team. We don't have that Kucherov that like on a dime will get like 5 points, just like it's nothing. We just don't have that guy right now. So we need this. We need every line to contribute. We need every line to like, even the fourth line, like we need guys on the score sheet every night. It can't just be one line. And that's how I think we beat Colorado, is like we beat them because we were able to roll. Well, maybe not the fourth line as much, but then again, like Mishkov's goal that came off of, I swear to God, I was watching the game because it was like, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 8 minutes left in the third, or it was like late in the third. I'm like, what? In my head, I was about to tweet it, like, why the fuck are you putting the fourth line on? And then, the way he takes that shot, the flex it in. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna shut my mouth. I didn't say nothing.
You didn't hit send. You didn't hit send.
Click send.
Even though you just snitched on yourself.
I'll admit, I don't care. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I have zero issues.
I respect that. Always take the take, whether it's right or wrong. Who cares?
Yeah. So I'm like, so you know what? Like that was a massive positive for me this week, especially with that Colorado game. The secondary scoring, Urson looks like he's figured it out. Like at least for now, we've seen that before with Urson though. He hits these little spurts where he's like, oh my God, he's back, and then he goes back down. Let's hope that he could keep this up. But no, like you know what? Solid man, solid road trip. 5 out of 6 points. Can't ask for more.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm going to piggyback off of that. Sam Urson, round of applause for you this week, man. Good on him. That we have clowned on this dude, me included. I still don't think he should be back after this year, but I will give him for now his props because he played well. And you said it best, Eric. He goes on these spurts, and I think this could be the beginning of one of them. And it might just be the positive. Well, maybe not the positive, but like what's the old phrase that a blessing in disguise of Dan Vladar getting hurt is Sam Urson finally got the opportunity to get a couple games to build his confidence back up again. And you saw it in that Vegas game. I don't even think they played that particularly well against Vegas. I really don't. I think that was more of a Sam Urson game. They played good to start the game in the first period, but the next 2 periods, I think Vegas controlled pace of play. But Urson was solid. It was a low event, Rick Tocchet game. And, Travis Konechny did bury 2 separate breakaway goals in that game to give them their 2 goals. But overall, they were opportunists. I think they had under 20 shots against Vegas, if I remember correctly. If it was above 20, it was barely above 20. But they didn't get too much on net. And I feel like it was just the opportunities Vegas got weren't A-quality chances, but a lot of B-quality chances. And it was opportunities that we could say, okay, which soft goal is Sam going to let in today? And he really didn't. The one goal he allowed in that Vegas game was a sick redirect by Thomas Hertl. Not his fault at all. Fantastic play by a fantastic player. So Urson stole that game. That is what we've always said about him. He needs to steal a game, and he did that against Vegas. I do not think he played that well against Utah personally. There was at least 1 or 2 goals I feel like he could have had. But I don't put the primary blame on him. I put the primary blame on the team taking the foot off the gas. You're up 3-0 in that game. They came out of the gates guns a-blazing against Utah. Completely dominated that first period. They got 2 goals in the first 5 minutes? They snuck in a third one to begin the second period. And even when you got those first 2 goals, they were outplaying Utah constantly. Utah didn't do a damn thing in the first period. But as you mentioned, Eric, when that big hit on Owen Tippett, mind you, I still think that should have at least been a minor. I don't think it was a major. I'm glad they reviewed it. I do think that should have been a minor, but whatever, besides the point. But the moment that hit happened, they kind of just lapsed. And Utah had like a 5 or 6 minute dominant spurt where they snuck 2 goals back. Flyers make it 4-2, and then the rest is history. The last 10 minutes, the game kind of collapsed within itself. Of course, I fell asleep in that game with about 3 or 4 minutes to go in the third. And I woke up and I saw that they lost in overtime. Like, oh my God, what the fuck happened? And I'm just thinking after that, like, that's a demoralizing loss. And that was the most pissed off I've seen Rick talking in that presser after a game. But, I will say this, they respond. This has been one of the identities of this team outside the 6-game losing streak that I will give them is they have continuously responded after games like that. And boy, did they ever against Colorado. Owen Tippett, man, has been on a fucking bender. And this has been the thing about him. He kind of reminds me a little bit of JVR in a sense of how, not in its style of play, but in terms of getting hot and cold out of nowhere. This has always been the thing with Owen Tippett is he can consistently go catch on fire and then go missing for a month. He's on fire right now. Him and Konechny both. Travis Konechny, again, I got to continue to give him his flowers. He's been great lately. He really has. We gave him shit earlier in the year. And again, to reiterate from last week, maybe not great, but he's been good. Good is probably a better term. He's not been as bad as I thought he was earlier in the year. He's been putting up points. He was a big reason why they won that game against Vegas.
Yeah,
very good.
Small little thing to mention too. Last goal in that Colorado game, at the end of the shift, didn't try to force it. Passed it over to Michkov. Let him get the empty netter. Small little things like that I appreciate. Good on him. He knows he's got to help the kid get some confidence. Michkov, I think he played well all 3 games this week. Even in the game against Utah, I don't think he put up a point. But I think all 3 games he looked impactful. Good on him. Hopefully Vladar's back Monday and Kolosov probably goes back down to the AHL so he can get back into his form because he hasn't played in over a week now. But, happy as a collective whole of what I saw with the team. Tippett's on a bender. Defensively, outside of the Utah game in the late stages of that spurt in the second, the late stages of the third, they played pretty well. Again, a team like Colorado, I'm not going to give too much shit for them getting those 3 goals. There's so much high-end talent there. That snipe by Cale Makar on Sam Ertz was fucking ridiculous. I do think Urson left the net open a little bit too much on the left side, but I'm not going to give him too much crap there because that was just an elite shot by an elite player. Enough said. Cale Makar is one of one, man. But, good on them. Fantastic week. Hopefully they can build off of it. Like what I've seen just as a collective whole. And accountability, one last thing to add, accountability. Where Rick Tocchet brought up the penalties, players are still taking penalties, and he really hasn't shown that accountability. I don't understand why you say that if you're not going to stand by and scratch a guy and say what you said. So
don't get me started, Alex. Don't get me started, Alex, on accountability.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man.
Well, we're about to get into the state of the rebuild.
Yeah, we'll get into that very shortly. But lastly, Rick, at least be accountable and stand by what you say. Because you say one thing and then do another. It kind of makes you look like a half-ass coach doing shit like that, man. Come on. Don't say it if you're not going to do it. Plain and simple. But anything else anyone wants to add about this week before we move on to the rebuild talk?
Yeah, I think that what you just said, I think goes back to the scratching of Michkov. I really think that was the player he was probably talking about.
Oh, he was 100%. Waiting for Michkov to take a bad penalty. He was just
and guess how many penalties he took this week?
And that's the reason I think he said it, because that's something that reminds me of Torts, what Torts used to do. He would say stuff in the pressers. Okay, I'm not singling out any player, and he never did. To his credit, he never did. You know what I mean? He never pointed, oh, well, except, at times, like Morgan Frost, he's playing like a toilet seat or something, or something. You know what I mean? But he really was at the time, right? So, but I don't know. But yeah, Torts would do the same thing, not single anybody out, but just deflect and say, hey, it's my fault, I suck. And he wanted all the attention to himself, and then hopefully the player gets out of it and never had to bench him again. You know what I mean? So, but you're right. That's one thing about Tocchet that's different from Torts. Torts would have benched said player. Tocchet not bench said player. So unless it's like Nikita Grabeckin, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed. Like, I don't understand what his gripe is on him. I'd like to see Grabeckin get back into this lineup personally at some point. I think Grundstrom has suddenly gone very quiet. He hasn't done much lately, and then you can talk about Hathaway too.
He's coming back down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, he's a fourth liner.
Fourth liner. He's coming back down to earth. He was playing over his head. And that's where, honestly, like Flyers fans, we'll get into that in the state of the rebuild.
Why don't we go into that now?
Yeah.
So here we are now. We'll call this year 3 or 4? Would you say this is the rebuild? Maybe I'll call it year 3 since Danny took over.
Yeah.
I think it's year 4 overall. But here we are. We'll call it 3, just for argument's sake. We're in year 3 of this rebuild. And, the one thing that always stood out was Danny's presser at the end of the year last year. They wanted to start potentially adding and taking steps forward. And by that, I always kind of took into perspective of development, young players taking steps forward, adding a young piece or two, which he did by bringing in Trevor Zegras. That was the massive ad of the offseason.
Great ad.
Stuff like that. Well, here we are. And I think this is the first year we can wholeheartedly say we have significant questions about where this thing is going. The Christian Dvorak extension speaks for itself. Bringing in Rick Tocchet, who we all agree probably was not the right coach, even with the little 3-game spurt they had today. Now they're even in the rumor mill for Artemi Panarin, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, especially with the 80 billion wingers we already have. So let me start with you, Eric. Where are you with this rebuild right now, just as a collective whole?
Okay, well, I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to tell you how I view the rebuild and the way it's been going. We were in the drafting phase of the rebuild. So basically, like you said, technically you could say it's year 3 or 4. Depends how you want to view the last year of Chuck Fletcher.
Yeah.
So look, we end up picking Cutter at 5. Unfortunately, he didn't want to fucking stay. He fucked off. He wanted to get traded. Whatever. Okay. But at the end of the day, you drafted a winger. Okay. Then year after is Mishkov at 7. Then year after that, Porter Martone at 6. Unfortunately, look, we did draft high. I don't think in a rebuild you have to absolutely have the number 1 and 2. Does it help? Yes, obviously it does. But you have to hit on your picks. And look, with Mishkov and Porter Martone, it looks like we've hit. Now, look, Porter, time will tell. But he looks to be like a stud. And look, for Cutter, we ended up getting Drysdale in a second, which I think we used on, I forget if it was Van Soggy or the other one. I forget. But look, we'll see. Time will tell. Drysdale's looking like a good defenseman. He's maybe not the quarterback of the power play that we maybe envisioned that he could be. To me, more a little off topic. To me, right now, you know who he reminds me of a lot is Sean Walker. He reminds me a lot of Sean Walker Drysdale. Just great in transition, great at carrying the puck, solid defensively, can move the puck. He'll pick you up some points here and there. He's not necessarily a quarterback, the power play of a quarterback, power play quarterback, but whatever, he could be put on the power play. So that's the way I see Drysdale right now. Now, could he get better? Yes, I think if he develops even more, he'll probably end up being a better point producer than Sean Walker will ever be in his career. But we'll see. So, look. So now I think the drafting is over. We drafted Lucic also. We drafted Nesbitt. We drafted Bonk. So we have a lot of of the prospects in the cupboards. The prospects are there. Now we're entering phase 2. This is where and phase 1, I think Danny did a great job. Again, time will tell on everybody they drafted. I know like a lot of people aren't huge on the Luchenko or Nesbitt pick. I personally am high on Luchenko. Nesbitt, time will tell. He wasn't the guy I would have picked there. And even in the second round, I had a few of like, anyway. But then, like, look, phase 2 started this offseason. He brought in Vladar. Vladar is playing great. He made the trade for Zegras. Zegras is really panning out. Now he traded for him to be a center. This is another Rick Tocchet. That's why I just don't think he's the right coach for where they are right now. But anyway, now that you're in phase 2, and this was actually an issue I had with Chuck Fletcher back in the day, and I just really hope it doesn't get repeated now. With all the assets that you have, because look, all these kids you drafted will not be playing on your team. All these picks you accumulated, you will not be making them all. So now you have to take these assets that you have and fill the holes. The biggest hole is definitely 1C. 1C, or at least a bottom end 1C. You don't need an elite. I'm not in the belief that you need an elite center for to win a cup. Again, perfect example, Chicago. Did you know that Jonathan Tate, right? He was the number 1 center on those Chicago teams. You know, he had only 1 point per game season in his career. 1. Like, you don't need that big point producing center if you're elite on the wings. You still need a good center. You need a capable center. You need like someone that hovers close to a point per game. That, yes, obviously you need you can't just have Dvorak, Couturier, and Cates. Like, you can't have 3-3-Cs. No. But if you can have a low end 1 and 2 2s, like, you could win that way. Especially if you have elite talent on the wings. So, but now this is where the hard part is. You have to identify that center. You have to identify possibly that defenseman to bring in, because you have the assets to do it. Now, we'll get into it later when we talk centers. Who's available? I don't know. Like, do you want to wait and see? Like, we'll see. But so, like I said, from phase 1, I think they did a pretty good job. Like, time will tell us, like I said, with all the picks. But now phase 2 is where we're really going to start judging where the rebuild is going. And like I said, to start, it started well. But now you see the biggest issue on the team is the center position. Now is where you have to act. Now is where you have to bring somebody in to continue that rebuild. And we'll see. Look, I trust Danny. He's made some great trades, and I think he's very capable. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, so far I think it's on the right track.
Where would you grade it on a 1 to 10 scale right now? Let me ask that, because I'm going to be using this a little bit.
On a 1 to 10, so far, let me say 8. Let me say 8.
Okay.
Just because I like a lot of the guys that we did draft that I do like Mishkov, like Martone. Not only them, like Denver Barkey. Look at what Barkey's doing right now. Like that's a hell of a pick. And plus like some other guys that we have that are still coming. Like if Bump hits, that looks like another late round gem right there. So like, yes, look, and at the end of the day, like a lot of fans have to understand, like, and I know it sucks because like a lot of fans are down on Luchenko and Nesbitt, and it's like, well, you wasted 2 top 15 picks on 2 guys that are going to be 4Cs, 3Cs. We don't know. At the end of the day, look, we don't know. But what I think, well, first of all, I think that Luchenko is going to be better than that. But at the end of the day, they're not ready now. So we have to bring somebody in so that eventually Luchenko or Nesbitt will be taking the Dvorak spot, will be taking Kate's spot. Those are the guys that those 2 guys have to replace. But you still need to bring in that 1C or as close that you can find it to a 1C, because you weren't able to get that in the draft. You weren't. So now you have to identify it, and you have to go find them, and you have to bring them here. So 8.
I like that. Good little breakdown there. A lot of these guys are wait and see guys. Jamey, how about you? Where do you stand where they are on the rebuild at the moment?
7 for me right now. 6 or 7. I'll get in. I'm going to do it in a different way than what Eric did, because he hit on a lot of good notes and a lot of quality notes. I'm going to do it from a fan's perspective. The fans' perspective, you're looking at Quinn Hughes being traded for who? Zev Bayam was included in the deal. So from their perspective, would Jet Luchenko be able to get you Quinn Hughes? No, he would not. Would Jack Nesbitt be able to? Well, I'll just stop there. I'll just stop at Luchenko because Bayam was on the board. Bayam was on the board at that time. So we all know now on the surface, it had to be Mitch Coffer and Martone for Quinn Hughes. And rightfully, Danny Briere said no, right? But that still leaves the Flyers where? With the gaping hole at 1D. Because I don't think the Flyers have a 1D at the moment. I don't think Sanheim is that. I think Sanheim is a quasi 1A. I think he's a 1B, maybe on second
He's a true good two. He's a real good two.
That's where I view him. I also view Cam York on the same realm. Actually, I put Sanheim on pairing 2, York on the opposite side. So in totality, the Flyers are short a 1A, 1B, pairing. Now they have guys, plugging in for obvious reasons. And I think they played well this year. They're just not that, in my opinion, from a fan's point of view. So from a fan's point of view, that's a gaping hole. Now, that again, did not come from drafting. They haven't drafted that in the draft. They drafted Oliver Bonk. He was never supposed to be that. There are a lot of metrics saying that he might be the 1B. I have him, right now, but I have him as wait and see. I think it's unfair to say, okay, he couldn't be a 1B or be a second pairing, but we know that he definitely isn't a 1A type of defenseman, Oliver Bonk, although the door is left open. So there you go. The drafting is done for the defense-wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're looking at another gaping hole, and what started out to be a classic free agent class has now turned into a dud. So the free agency is out the window. That leaves one option because the Flyers at this stage, and that's where my value lowers for the rebuild, because I think they haven't hit on all these picks, and that's from a fan's perspective. Do I blame Brent Flair? Not so sure yet. My door is open on him right now. Do you blame the scouts? I don't know. But they drafted, in my opinion, Luchenko off of need, not off of best player available. And I think if they went with the best player available, maybe they would have solved the 1D aspect. You know what I mean? And that's no dig at Luchenko. I like Eric. I am very high on Luchenko. I like him. But they didn't draft the best player available because he couldn't be used in a trade for Quinn Hughes. Mm-hmm. Whereas Bayam did. So they didn't draft the best player available, in my opinion. And yes, they are at different positions. I do understand that. But rightfully so, if Mitch Goff and Martone were made available, they could have Quinn Hughes today. They were not, obviously. So that's why Danny shut the door on Quinn Hughes. So the drafting aspect is suspect to me, and that's why I give it a 6 or 7, because I don't know about the Nesbitt pick, unlike Eric. And fans are as well. And this is from the fans' perspective. I don't know. They don't know. I don't see many people saying, oh, this is a bust. It feels like a bust. And that's why fans are in the dumps a little bit, because the only way to draft a 1C or 1D, like Chris Pronger said it best this week, after fans, they don't grow on trees. Everyone knows that. And that's why Chris Pronger said that it should have been brought all the way down. And that's why some fans are comparing this to a Chuck Fletcher era, because it feels like it's a retool on the fly, which is what Chuck Fletcher did just with different players. So now you plugged in Trevor Zegras to fill a void, who's not even filling a void right now because he's not even being played down the middle. And that's what's mind-boggling to me. This guy was brought in and they're like, oh, yeah, we could try to put him down the middle, and they've yet to do it. Like, he played down the middle, 4 games? And I'd be nice by saying 4 because I think it's only 3. But I'll give him 4. And I'm like, you didn't plug a hole. What hole did Trevor Zegras plug? He was just brought in for more talent, I guess. And and rightfully so, he's had a good year this year. So yes, that does help the talent pool for Philly a little bit. But that's where the retool on the fly comes in, because then you plug a hole with Dan Vladar real quick, and Vladar is playing over his head. He was playing out of his mind, out of his brains, you know what I mean? And he plugged a hole at the goaltending position there, hopefully until Jaeger Bragan, comes over from North America. Alexei Kolosov was there. They gave him one game. He didn't play very well. The team didn't play very well, but he didn't play very well either. He didn't make that save and say, yeah, keep me in. And I understand I blame him for one goal, the second goal, but the two goals, he had no shot on. He had like a 3-on-0 close to, and then another odd man rush the other way, a 2-on-1. I mean, he had no shot, on either of those goals. The second goal he did, though. The second goal was a shot from the point. Although I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because I think he was sort of screened. But although he should have made that save, that's one that he should have had. So Dan Vladar is a plug with a hole. But who do you have at the goaltending position after Vladar? And to me, like, they didn't draft a goalie the past, few years, in the draft. And that's where I circle back to drafting. And that's why my value drops, because I don't think they have knocked the draft out of the park. I think they got lucky with Michkov. This is from a fan's perspective. They got lucky with Michkov, right? And Martone, they lucked out that another team didn't snag Martone, or else Martone wouldn't be on the Flyers right now. You know what I mean? And that's where you're looking at the Anaheim Ducks, and you're like, wow, okay, yeah, they're faltering a little bit now. Rightfully so. I mean, you're a young team, right? But you had Sinecki playing out of his mind. And then you had Gauthier, who didn't want to play for Philly, playing out of his mind. And then you plug in like a Chris Kreider there, who started off hot. Now it's dimmed a little bit, but and then you had Dostal. They got a good young nucleus. And then the Chicago Blackhawks, you're looking at their drafting, and all those young players, they're playing crazy and doing very well. In the same token, and then you're looking at Philly, who goes with that blunder to Utah. Before that, they're on a 16 losing streak. Blowing leads, playing vet heavy. They were vet heavy this past week, up until last night. You know what I mean? To where he let Barkey, do his thing. He let Michkov do his thing. And that's why the fans were so down in the dumps. They're not losing with the youth. They're losing with vets. And that's where the retool on the fly comes in to the Chuck Fletcher era, in which I think that they are better on the retool on the fly. And that's what it reminds me of, is a retool on the fly. This is nothing different from what Chuck Fletcher did. You know what I mean? In my opinion. Now, this offseason, hopefully that comes into where this big stage of the rebuild comes in. And that's why I'm up to a question mark past that, because at the trade deadline, I just see him staying put for the most part. Rightfully so, unless that one trade comes about that we're not thinking of, which could, right? But this is going to be the first off season with money. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how much money, because Michkov needs a new contract. You know what I mean? So they have to look towards the future a little bit with Michkov, right? He's going to need a new contract. And there's a few other players there that need new contracts with the RFA. So they're able to spend, anywhere from $10 to $15 million. Well, there's your 1C or 1D defenseman. You know what I mean? So it's going to be kind of interesting. And they have another year with Dan Vladar, at the helm. So I'm a 6'7" right now, and that's based off of drafting. Let's see. Yeah, 6'7", right? Let's
walk into that one.
I'm a question mark after that, because I agree. I don't think Tocchet was the right coach at the right time. I think that I would have given Bradshaw another year or two. So I think that dims me down a little bit for Danny Briere. They weren't in a winning mode at the time Rick Tocchet was hired. They were at the stage of the rebuild to where they're still rebuilding. So bringing in a coach that wants to win like Torts didn't make sense to me, and it still doesn't. And I'm not. It's not that I'm knocking Rick Tocchet. I'm just not a fan of the hire, because I think he was the wrong coach it was the wrong time to hire a coach like Rick Tocchet, because they weren't in a winning mode, and that's what he's trying to make them into a winning mode. And I don't see them as that. I see them as a playoff bubble team. At this moment, I do not see them as. I cannot say yes, they're going to absolutely make the playoffs. I see them as a playoff bubble team, just like I view Torts. The past few years, playoff bubble team. So this is a rebuild on the fly. This is what it comes to. And that's why fans are in the dump. Fans are in the dump because they don't have that 1C. They're not tanking for the 1C. They're not tanking for a 1D. It just reminds fans of a Chuck Fletcher era, just a little better than what Chuck Fletcher did as a GM.
Can
Wow,
I say
that
something?
was-
Can I say something?
Go right ahead.
That was excellent analysis. That was fire. Way to go.
He hit the hammer on the nail. There was a lot of really good points there. I agree with the majority of your points. Few things I slightly disagree with, but for the majority of what you have to say, I think you hit the hammer on the nail. So for me, if you went going into the year, I was higher than lower. I liked what Danny did in the general big picture. They traded a lot of pieces off this team. Ivan Provorov, Kevin Hayes, Scott Lawton, Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, Tony D'Angelo, then reflips Sean Walker, Cam Atkinson. The names continue. I went over this a little bit last week. They went off. They got a lot of these guys out of here. They needed to recuperate assets because there was very little hope after that 21-22 seasons. And even going into 22-23. That was, they drafted Gauthier, yes, but 21-22 is kind of like when the official rebuild kind of quote unquote started. But at the same time, they weren't doing enough for I can say, oh, they need to go full scare, tear it down. They finally fired Chuck Fletcher at the end of the 22-23 when he couldn't even get anything for James Van Riemsdyk somehow. So now we move up. We're in year 3 of Danny Briere, which is kind of why I say year 3 or 4. Danny has done a good job collecting assets at that point. You had 2 first-round picks in 2023, his first draft. You landed Matvei Michkov and Oliver Bonk. Did they maximize on the Oliver Bonk pick? You could have some debate. My pick person would have been Gabe Perreault, but there were other guys. I do think Bonk has a trajectory of a good top 4 defenseman. We'll see. He hasn't played an NHL game yet. I think we'll get maybe a little bit better of idea potentially next year on that, but we'll see. Then we go to 2024. Again, you have 2 first-round picks to begin, and you're originally landing on pick 12. You also landed Matvei Michkov year 1. Fantastic. You got your future franchise winger right there. You go on Rick's channel, you can see my reaction to them picking Matvei Michkov. I was like a kid on Christmas morning. If it was for me, it was Michkov, which I thought was a fairy tale. Ryan Leonard, Zach Benson were my 3 guys in that order. Then we go to 2024. This is where I have some questions. Not knocking Luchenko, but I don't think you maximize the pick. You look at that table of guys that were there at 12. First of all, you trade down to 13 with Minnesota, recuperate a 3rd-round pick. I guess they were never high on Z Boyum, whatever. I don't know how you convince them to do that, but whatever. You go down to pick 13. Even if you take Z Boyum out of it, you're going for need. Costas Hellenius, which is the guy I was number 2 on my list of guys before Boyum, was there. And that is the guy I think you could have. Even Cole Eierman at the time, whose trajectory has kind of shifted downward since. He's not quite the player it looks like we thought he was going to be. Mind you, never played an NHL game yet. Well, jury's still out on that, but trajectory-wise at least. And you go Jet Luchenko, who was kind of projected in like somewhere in the 20s range. And look at him now. He got traded from, where he was in the OHL. I think he's on Branton right now, if I remember correctly. I'm blanking on the team.
I think that sounds about right. I forget. No.
Yeah, I think he's on Branton right now. And he's barely at a point per game there. And when you're looking at a pick like this, you want a guy like that to take over. He's on a better team now, too. It's not like he's playing with mailmen and friggin' electricians on the Ghoul of Storm anymore. He's not taking the step we expected. Now, mind you, jury is still out, but then you see a guy like Costas Hellenius, who in his debut puts up 3 points with Buffalo. And it's like, again, a lot of time. But if you're going by trajectory-wise, I wanted Hellenius for a while. I think he plays a very good two-way game, and we pinpointed him as a trade target, but do you think Buffalo's going to really want to trade him now, especially after this start? We'll see.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Then you go to this year. Now I'm just going over the first round picks, mind you. Porter Martone, who ceiling-wise I thought was the third best player in the draft. I love the pick in terms of best player available, but James Higgins was there. And you're looking at, did you want to go center? This is something you guys have needed for a true 1C for some time. Now, maybe the argument could be they don't truly feel confident that Higgins is going to materialize into a 1C. Maybe he ends up shifting over to the wing and adds to your plethora of 8 billion wingers. Okay, I can understand that argument at that point. I do think Martone is a little bit higher of a ceiling, so I'm not going to give them too much crap for that. Then you do that trade with Pittsburgh and trade up from 22 and 31 for pick 12. And you got some names still there on the table. Carter Bear, I know he's coming off of the Achilles, but still some real talent there. Braden Coots, Kayshawn Atchison, your guy. That's who you were clamoring for, and I thought he would have been a great pick. Eklund, the winger. But he's a left winger. They got about 8 billion right wingers. At least you can talk me into that a little bit, that they don't have a natural left winger. You go with Jack Nesbitt. Center, but feels like a reach. Feels like a guy you could have even potentially got at 22. I guess the argument at the time was Vancouver and Nashville were kind of high on him and you wanted to jump them. But look at Vancouver and Nashville. Are those exactly two organizations that are known for being good at talent evaluation, especially where they are right now? I don't know. Now, I will give Danny some props. He's hit on some late gems. Jack Berglund looks like he's going to be better than what we thought in the third round from 2024. Good pick so far, it looks like. Denver Barkey, 2023 third round pick. He's on the Flyers right now. Has 8 points in 16 games. Good on the kid. He looks like he might be a long-term fit here. Alex Bump, who won a national title last year at Western Michigan, looks like a guy who is starting to really take off in the AHL. Another gem. You had 4 second-round picks you used last year. Some more than others I agree with. I'm not crazy about the Amico pick. I don't mind Van Sage. I think Murtaugh was the best of the 4 that you picked. That's the one I'm personally the highest on. We'll see. But quality, quantity, at least, in terms of players that you got. So at least in the early stages of this rebuild, they were gathering players, gathering picks, gathering accents. But then I look at this year. We were talking about where we would rank this. I had them at a 7.5 going into this year. I dropped that to about a 6 right now. And maybe even a 5.5. And I'm not even crapping on what you say. You can take the draft analysis out of this. It's what they've done since. Rick Tocchet. We've all said it. This does not feel like the right hire for this team. Again, even if you're going in a winning perspective of trying to quote-unquote win now, which I don't agree with, why Rick Tocchet? He's got 1 legitimate playoff appearance in 9 years. I'm not counting, as I stated before last week, not counting 2020. 1 legitimate playoff appearance in 9. Yeah, he's got a Jack Adams. So didn't the last 2 coaches they hired. Okay. Then the Dvorak extension. Why did you feel the need to do this? As I stated last week, when you have Sean Couturier here already, when you have a guy like Noah Cates here, you have a plethora of lower-end centers. How does guys like a Luchenko find a way into this lineup? Like a Nesbitt find ways into this lineup? Like a Berglund find ways into this lineup? If you even trade for a center, that makes it even more complex, unless if you move one of them. I feel like the most likely thing that's going to happen because of the contracts is they're probably going to have to move Noah Cates. And I would have rather preferred to keep Cates over both of those centers because he at least he's younger and plays a better 200-foot style. It's up to me. You know my feelings on Sean Couturier right now. I trade him for a bag of friggin' fruit roll-ups. What it is at this point. And then you're just looking at the logjam that they have of contracts. Travis Konecny, you go back to that. Did you really think that he was worth extending when you could have got a haul for this guy? I mean, I like Konechny. He's a good player. I think he's probably a low-end winger of one. I think he's a low-end first-line winger on a cup team. He's a 70-point guy. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I like Konechny. But in terms of potentially maximizing the asset and going with the age of the group that you want to rebuild with, does he fit the timeline? Owen Tippett, giving him an 8-year deal. I've been praising Owen Tippett. We're going to be going into some praise about him right now. So I might be sounding like I'm contradicting myself to a future point, but in terms of maximizing the asset, maybe him, you got a little bit more of an argument, but is he going to be on this team when this team is truly ready to compete? Is he going to be in his prime? I think you got a better argument with him, but at the same time, now you get the logjam at wing too, and that's a completely separate argument. There are some question marks to be made with what Danny has done with a lot of these guys and a lot of these contracts, especially in the age group that they're in too. Let me ask you this. Out of all the centers they have in the pipeline, do you feel like any of them, I'm asking you this as a question, Eric, do you feel like any of them is a surefire thing to be a top 6 center? Not saying that they can't be, but a quote unquote surefire thing. That's
top.
my point. That
Look, it's because the thing is, like, but like I said, like, the thing is, I don't view Luchenko. I don't think he can be like a bona fide 1.
No,
but I think he could be a really good 2.
And I do too. I think there is a path for that.
If you want to say top 6, but I don't think he's a 1, but he's definitely a 2. I guess, but I'd be more comfortable saying middle 6, but like closer to a 2 than a 3.
Yeah.
But again, that's what that goes to my point from before. Listen, the cards just didn't drop your way for a center in the draft, but we ended up getting 2 possibly elite wingers.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now with the rest of what you drafted, package it and go get a center. That's right. Because look, the draft is not always going to fall your way. It's not. At the end of the day, and yes, you have to take the best player available. With Luchenko pick, did they? Probably not. Probably not. But they saw the raw skill in him. He's super young. He was super young for his draft for his age at the time. So you're like, well, so he's almost like a year behind all these other guys. So maybe he'll catch up and whatever. And look. At the end of the day, again, time will tell. Because yes, look, Constantinius had a great like debut to his season. But like if you looked at their lineup, he wasn't playing center. He was playing on the wing.
I think he was not more on the wing. Yeah,
he was playing on the wing. Actually, it's funny because because I was looking at the roster that game, and Noah Ostlund was actually playing center. Who like me and Isaiah have had like conversations before on the show, like. Because he's Ostlund and Hellenius were 2 guys that me and him have been saying for like the past year, like target Buffalo, get one of these guys. Yeah. And he's been higher on Hellenius. And I like them both, either Ostlund or Hellenius. But we think that Ostlund might end up being more of a winger. But like again, either way, at the end of the day, but that goes back to my point, is that look, the draft just didn't fall your way, especially when you were drafting high. For me, the biggest mistake, well, again, but it wasn't even Briere. It was, and now again, I don't know if he tried, but then again, it was Chuck Fletcher, so I wouldn't even be too like the Cutter Gauthier draft. We weren't like I wasn't doing this with you yet, and I wasn't even that big on Twitter, but like I was still like I'll show it. I have the receipts. I said when it was clear that we were at 5, we have to trade up to 3 and get Logan Cooley. We have to trade whatever it takes that you have to give up. Trade up to 3 and get Logan Cooley. Now it was Chuck Fletcher, so I don't know how much he actually tried, or if he was like, "Hey, Bill, can we maybe possibly trade to 3?" And Bill's like, "No." He's like, "Okay," like hang up the phone. Like I don't know. Like did he even try? Did he make a call? I don't know. Yeah. So I think that's where there might have been a mistake made. Honestly, like you said, like with TK. Maybe we could have packaged a player and 5 to go up to 3 and get 3 and like maybe a lesser player or even another pick.
Yeah.
That would have been the move. That's what like, and so, but look, whatever. We ended up staying at 5. We got Cutter, and then there was the whole like, well, we could turn him into a center. No, like he's a winger. And look, yeah, no, go. I'm done. I'm done.
So where I'm really at with this though is, like I said, because even with all that being said about the draft, I was still at least at a 7.5. I still thought, you got some talent. Mind you, they weren't centers. Well, Luchenko maybe, but like we'll see on that. I'm personally not high on the Nesbitt pick. I'm with you there, especially trading up 2 picks, but let's push that aside for the time being. It's the moves that were made this season during the season. And I felt like they were so premature, bringing in a guy like Tocchet, especially when it was time to have a coach that could grow and develop and acclimate with the team. And that's the thing. You said it best yourself last week when you brought up that point with Elliot Friedman. They brought Tocchet in to win now. And this team is not ready to do that. Are they ready to take a step forward? Yes. But that is a massive difference between winning now and taking a step forward where maybe you get a few more points in the air, but your guys put more of a role on their team long term. You know me. I am the number 1 fan of the Tyson Forster fan club. I've said it a million times on this pod. He was a guy I had a big hopes of taking a step forward this year. And he was on that route of doing that before he went down with the shoulder injury. Absolutely sucks for the kid. I can't wait to see him rebound and dominate on this team next year. Please don't trade him, Danny. I love Tyson Forster. Keep him here. But besides the point, but now we look at development. Aside from Owen Tippett, I think that's probably the outliner. Who can you really say has taken a significant step forward this year? Maybe small steps we could argue on players, but a significant step forward. Michkov's obviously taken a step back this year. Konechny's kind of been stagnant at the same, more or less.
He's pretty much the same. Yeah.
I think York might be slightly better than last year, but last year he had a rough year. I think he's been closer. Like York last year, York 2 years ago, York this year. Is kind of the way I look at it right now. Drysdale's taken another slight step forward, but he's kind of taken a step back in recent games. He hasn't been quite as good. Excuse me. Sanheim, beginning of the year, he was guns a-blazing, but I think all that ice time has kind of caught up to the kid. Maybe if you want to say Bobby Brink, I think I can hear that argument. I think because he's on, not a significant, but he's taken a step this year. He's probably on pace for over 20 goals this year. He's already tied his career high. So good on the kid. But that's a third liner. That's on a core guy. No disrespect to Bobby Brink. Like the kid a lot. Very awesome. Nice player. But he's a third liner. Oh, there's no disrespect. Noah Cates, he's kind of taken a step back this year, if you ask me. Offensively, he's been okay, but he's really hasn't done much offensively lately. Defensively, he's been more or less the same. I don't think you've gotten much out of him this year. Hathaway's fallen off a cliff. Mind you, he's not a core guy anyway, so it's not like that really means anything. Urson's fallen off a cliff and that's fallen off a cliff on top of a cliff because he fell off a cliff last year, and now he fell off another one. But again, he's been better than the last week, so good on him. But again, we've seen this a million times with Urson. Who that was here last year? Zegras don't count. He wasn't here last year, so you can't really use him. Who was here last year outside of maybe Owen Tippett? That's a quote-unquote core guy. I should have probably added that in there. Michkov, no. Drysdale, no. York, no. Konechny, more or less the same. Couturier falling off a cliff. That's the thing. He's not doing the quote-unquote developing part. I was so adamant. Ferschweiler was my guy. That's who I wanted. Proven winner. Won a national title with a Western Michigan team that talent-wise is probably above their heads. But he found a way to bring that young team to win. I would have got on the phone with Ferschweiler and said, listen, you're our guy. We want you. Here's a check. Write any amount you want. we want you here. Because that's a guy that knows how to work with young talent. And that would have been, in my opinion at least, the perfect grab. Who knows how to get the most out of young talent. Imagine that. Western Michigan. Realistically, who the hell had them winning the national title last year? No one. That's me. That's where I stand with the rebuild. I don't think it's a failure. If you give me a letter grade last year, I gave it a B. This year, I'm more about a C plus, B minus range. Can that opinion change? Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe Luchenko comes in and completely outperforms in a year or two. Maybe, Michkov blows up next year and turns into the 92-point guy I predicted at the beginning of the year. That may have been excessive now looking back. But that's the thing. A lot can change. But if you ask me right now, I'm at like a C plus / B minus. That's just me. Eric, anything else to add on the rebuild before we move on to our next topic?
Yeah, no, but I just wanted to reiterate a couple things you just said, especially when it comes to talking. Look, I get it. For me, that honestly is the one move in this rebuild so far that I was was not the right guy at the right time. Again, I've said this before. I don't think Tockett's a bad coach. I really don't. I don't think he's a bad coach. He's not the right coach at the moment. He was just not. And look, you saw it in the Utah game. He relies on his veterans. He plays his veterans. He thinks his veterans give him the best chance to win. Well, look, man, your veterans cost you that game. Your veterans, it was Noah Jolson who took that stupid penalty. Again, you want to say, okay, he was defending his teammate, whatever. Time and place, guys. Time and place. You gave all the momentum back to Utah. That was on him. One of Tockett's guys.
That felt like a Dave Hackstall game back in the day when they tried holding on to those 1-2 goal leads. Oh my God.
And then you look we put a lot of the blame on Sanheim for misplaying that puck, but what's TK doing? Even making that pass back to him, and it's not even a clean pass. He sends him a bouncer. He sends him a grenade on into the boards. No, put that puck up ice. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Again, it's your veteran, and this again. And I've been on this since the fucking beginning of the season. Accountability. He preaches that he says sometimes he talks about accountability, but when it's your veterans that are making the mistakes, they're not getting punished. But your young players are making either the same mistakes or even less mistakes or whatever, and they're paying the price for it. And I don't like that. And like I said at the beginning of the season, no, I don't think it's happening now, but things like this could end up causing a rift in the room. After you've built up your room to to unite the room because it was a disaster before. Now you're doing something that could eventually cause fractures in the room. I'm sorry, Coots is cooked. Coots, I'm sorry, he is done. It was the
at least goal? Offensively, I still think he has some decent play at defensive end of the game.
Yes,
but offensively, he's a black hole.
100%, 100%. And you see that he's tired, that he's just not up to par. Take him off the power play. Why is he still on the power play? Why? Put Nikita Grabank in there. A kid with, if you're gonna play Nikita Grabank, or not even, you're just gonna fucking scratch him, but whatever. If you're gonna play him 11 minutes on the fourth line, well, get him an extra couple minutes on the power play. And save Coots, and cut down on Coots' minutes. These are the things, but these are the things that a forward-thinking coach, a young players coach, a developing coach will think. But these are not things that a veteran-heavy coach will do. Because for him, well, Coots is responsible. Coots knows how to play the right way. Coots is this and Coots is that. So I got to give him 18, 19, 20 minutes a game. No. Did you see that? It was last, I think it was the third goal. When he's behind the net. We're in the offensive zone. He's behind the net. And he just puts it off the board. To who? I don't know.
The second goal. Yes, last night. I know exactly. He did a pass off the boards and led exactly to a Colorado rush that ended up in the back of the net. I said the same thing on Twitter. I said the same thing on Twitter.
I was what is he doing? And do you think he's going to be reprimanded for that? Do you think he's going to lose a shift for that? Do you think he's going to lose minutes for that? He's lose power play time for that? PK time for that? No. But then again, God forbid Mishkov, Grubenkin, someone like that would have made that play, that guy would have been stapled to the bench.
I wrote when that pass happened, I said, great pass there, Coots, leading to that rush when they tied the game 2-2. That he was behind the net and he just whacks it off the boards and just goes into a 3-on-2 the other way. I was like, where is he putting that?
What the fuck? Where? Sorry. Anyway, so sorry. Like, I don't know, going off on talking, but like, again, I just want to reiterate, because some people like, I don't think he's gonna get fired. Honestly, I just don't. Like, they signed him for 5 years. He's not gonna get fired. And again, I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's the right coach for us.
Agreed. All right. With that being said, let's move on to our next topic. That was a lot of time on the rebuild. Oof. But that's all right. That was some good quality content right there. Let's move on to need for center. This team has major need for center. We all know it. And there's a market out there. There's some names that are going to be available. You know, the Rangers have expressed that they're going to be making some moves. Vincent Trocheck might be an interesting name. Robert Thomas, the younger center in St. Louis, his name's been thrown out there a little bit. Elias Pettersson, obviously. I don't think that one's that realistic for obvious reasons. But again, another name out there. Let's go into this. Eric, centers available. Any of them look realistic? And if so, which one? Or is there any that you'd personally go after?
Well, like, realistic. Look, obviously the top target, Robert Thomas, I don't think it's going to happen because they're asking for the moon for this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to cost you one of Mishkov Martin. It's probably going to cost you another top prospect. It's going to probably cost you a roster player plus, because they're not giving this guy away. They said it. Like, I forget who is a couple people reported it. The ask is astronomical because they know St. Louis is not stupid. They know there's no centers available, especially at like his age, Robert Thomas's age. He's like 26. Like, anyone that can play like top line, like, no, there's just not available. So if you want him, we don't have to trade him, but if you want him, knock our socks off. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I just don't think the Flyers will pay what it takes to get him. I say same thing like with Shane Wright. I'm like, I was on it. I'm like, if Shane Wright's available, you have to ask. Now, somebody, I forget who it was, I think yesterday put out something saying basically it's the same situation like Robert Thomas. They're asking for a big price for Shane Wright. So like, I'm like, look, if it would cost you Tippett, I don't know. I would consider doing, like, we'll talk about Tippett later. Like, again, I like Tippett. I do. I really like Tippett. But the thing is, and I've said this before, and like, if you want quality, you have to give up quality. Now, the question with Wright is, what is he going to be? Because now you're projecting with Wright. So you don't know what he is for sure. You don't. So that's why maybe I'm a little more hesitant to give up Tippett. But at the same time, Seattle will not trade you Wright if they're not getting something of quality back. Because why would they like just throw away like a fourth overall? Like, they're not. You know, he put up like, was it 44? I think 44 points last year. Like he was starting not take off, but like you saw it. This year he took a step back. Now, is it the coaching? Like Lane Lambert comes in, more of a defensive style, so he's getting limited minutes. He's playing behind Beniers. He's playing behind Chandler Stevenson. So
eventually Berkeley Catton too when he's implemented there as well.
And that's it. Yeah, and Berkeley Catton too. So like, look. So
don't even get me started with Jake O'Brien. They have a surplus of centers.
Exactly. But that's what they have, so many that like if we could pry one from them, you know. But same thing like Buffalo. You have Hellenius, you have Austin, you have Ray Kulik. Like they just gotta get somebody. They just gotta get somebody. Because look, at the end of the day, we re-signed Devo. Fine. I don't agree with the contract. I don't agree with the re-signing. But you know what? If it's gonna make Zegras happy, like they have some kind of chemistry, and you know that line works. You just basically need a center to replace Couturier. That honestly, and look, Tippett and Barkey have found some real chemistry together, and you know, and it's like they like, I'm sorry, but like even just watching the game yesterday, it's pretty like look, Coots still like make some plays, he's still fine, like, but like offensively, he gives you nothing. He gives you it was basically Tippett and Barkey doing everything in the offensive zone by themselves. Mm-hmm. So if let's say you keep those two together and you put an actual half decent center between them, or let's say you put Cates between them and then you put an actual, like, whoever you bring in, like between Mishkov and Brink or whatever, Mishkov and Marton, if he comes, and like whatever, we just need at least somebody to stabilize our top three so you can move. I'm sorry, but like Coots, you're a 4C now. Like, I'm sorry, that's what you are. Like, you're bringing nothing offensively, nothing. Like, you're getting burnt constantly. Like, you don't have the speed. That there was at one point, even last game. Oh man, I should have wrote it down. Jim Jackson said something fucking hilarious. And I was like, I don't think he meant it that way, but like the way, like basically, Coots tried to get to the defensive player with the puck, and it's like, I think he said something like, "Oh, and Coots is almost there," or something like that. It was like, but he had no chance.
He's making an attempt.
It's like it was like he's cooked. So look, I have a slight like, look, Pettersson. Now there was something that came out the other day, basically saying that I don't even think Pettersson doesn't even want to leave Vancouver. He has a no move, so he could just say like, no, like, guys, I'm not going nowhere. Like, so like, but then there was a report that came out. Then again, like, I think I read one last night saying that no, he's getting traded for sure this year. So there's a lot of stuff out there on him, and look, there's talk. It's here. So is he willing to come to Philly? Because it seemed like, you know, maybe they just didn't get along, or maybe, like, look, I was messaging with Jim Icavona there from HW, and he seems to think, or like he seems to have an understanding that actually it was JT Miller and Tocchet that really didn't see eye to eye, and that it's not necessarily that Tocchet and Pettersson hated each other. It was more that like, same thing like with Mishkov. It's like Tocchet just doesn't think that he plays the right way, and that he tried to change his game and make him into a player that Tocchet thinks he should be. Is that right? Is that wrong? Did Pettersson appreciate that? Did he not? I don't know. So for me, that Pettersson is a guy I would honestly take, again, if the price is right. I'm not giving up Marton or Mishkov, but for me, everybody else is on the table. Like, if he could even just become close to what he was, anywhere between that 100 and 102 to 89, like, if close to that, it's so much better than what we have right now.
Agreed.
It's night and day better than what we have right now. Even Pettersson playing at his pace right now is probably better than we have right now. So, look, it's either that or you gotta target like a reclamation project. Something like I was looking at like Hendrix Lapierre from Washington. He's really not panning out. Like, he's not putting up the points that, you know, maybe they thought he would. Do you buy low on someone like that? You have Utah has this kid Cole Baudouin that they drafted a couple years ago that's ripping it up in the OHL. Do you maybe try and get him and see what happens? You know, do you go with like a stopgap, like a Vincent Trocheck, and maybe I think the price is going to be way too high for Trocheck that like they won't be willing to pay. But something has to be done, whether it's this in season or the off season coming. But like I said previously, now we've entered phase 2. You started phase 2 by bringing in some good free agent signings. Devo, Zegras was a trade, and then Vladar. Great. Now, I don't agree with the Tocchet hire, and I don't agree with the Devo extension. Fine. But make up for it. Go get a center. Go get that guy to come and stabilize, to push everybody down one notch, and finally, like, make a cohesive unit every night that we could play. So I think that's the next step. And look, for me, defense, the number 1 D is it. Yes, it would be nice, but for me right now, that would be more of a luxury because, and I've said this before, I believe that you could win with a defense by committee. The way our defense is right now, if you would bring in, I'm just going to throw his name out there, but just not necessarily him, but let's say they go get Hamilton. Let's say they go get Dougie Hamilton. And your top 6 is basically like, I mean, not in this order, but like whatever. It's York, Sondheim, with Sealer and fuck, now I lost my train of thought.
Sealer, Risco, and Drysdale Hamilton.
Yeah, like something like that. But anyway, it's basically almost like you have 3 second pairs. Okay, it's almost like you have 3 second pairs, or like a 1B pair, a 2A pair, and a 2B pairs, you know, something like that. I think you can actually win that way. You don't need a stud like number 1 D man. Would it be great? Yeah, obviously. But I think if if we can get that center, to me, center is way, way more important and way much bigger of a hole. So I think that has to be addressed like right away.
Yeah. Realistically, in terms of the defenseman, at least, I don't know if I'd put Nick Seeler and second pair in the same sentence anymore, but I get what you're saying, just in a general.
I had my pairs written down somewhere and I lost it and I can't remember where I put it. I'm going to rewrite it.
My thoughts on the center spot, one thing I think Flyers fans are going to have to take acceptance on, mainly because of the market and the way they value centers versus wingers. It's going to take an overpay. You're not going to get equal value for this. You're going to have to take a risk on a guy that isn't a sure thing, who may have had success in the past, but like a Shane Wright, even like that. This is why I kind of put out Tippett for Wright on Twitter. I got a little bit of pushback from fans because I then complimented Tippett today on his game. And then people like, you can't make this up. Why are you bringing up Tippett for Wright after saying this one day later? And it's like, that's not what I was really trying to do. It's more the sheer fact that you need to accept that this is what it's centers are just a viable commodity in this. It's hard to get centers. Like Shane Wright, you mentioned, former 4th overall pick, was looked at to be a potential number 1 overall pick before he fell a little bit. But you look at that and just say, how are you going to find a way to get anyone else without paying a premium? Because there's 31 other teams in the league right now that are looking for centers. Well, maybe not 31, but I'd say at least 80% of the teams in the league are looking for additions and upgrades down the middle. And I'm going to be honest with you right now, you're probably not at the top of the list for assets that you can move. So you're going to probably, like you did with Trevor Zegras to a lesser extent, like I still had faith in Zegras' skill, but people had the thought like Zegras is maybe not a reclamation project, but someone who you need to pretty much move to find a better home, hence why his value dropped a bit. Now, mind you, I don't think you're going to get the steal like that for Zegras because there was always some potential question marks on whether he can play center to begin with. If you get a surefire center, Tippett for Wright doesn't seem all that asinine for the sheer fact that you know teams can probably provide more elsewhere. It's going to be a high-end bidding market. And, at the end of the day, realistically, if you're looking at wingers for high-end for pretty much assets that we can move, that you can get something back for, it's likely between 2 wingers, Owen Tippett and Tyson Forster. And like, no disrespect to Brink or Bart, or no disrespect to Cates or any guys like that, but they aren't on the level as those 2. So you probably likely got to make a decision between those 2. And the fact that Danny Briere came out and said when all these Quinn Hughes trade talks were happening that he puts maybe Tyson Forster in the tier below Michkov and Martone should tell you how high he sees this kid. He's probably, in my opinion, the 3rd highest forward Danny has, I'd say, in terms of value. Tippett, though, is probably going to be the guy that you're going to have to likely dangle in order to get a center. And if it's not Tippett, you're going to have to move some prospects. Are you willing to move Nesbitt after trading 2 firsts to get him? Are you willing to move not Martone? Are you willing to move a guy like Jet Luchenko when he's the only guy right now that you probably have some level of confidence that can be a top 6 center, more realistically more of a 2C? And that's not even a definitive, but probably your most likely bet you have in the pipeline. Jack Berglund looks like he's on the up and up, but I'm not confident enough to say he's going to definitely be a 2C either. I think he's probably more realistically a 3C, but, you never friggin' know. But point being is it's going to take an overpay likely to get one of these guys. Trying to think around the league, and if you want to get a center and maybe try to not have to pay as much for a little bit older of a guy, just as a reclamation project. We talked about some of these for next offseason before they signed Dvorak. Charlie Coyle out in Columbus, team that's kind of on a free fall. 1 year left on his deal. If you want to move some draft capital, I don't know if I definitely do that, but maybe you move a winger like a Bobby Brink or something like that to get a guy like him and see how it goes. The only issue is if he works out, then that's another center you'll probably have to damn sign. So a guy like that, you're more likely than not doing as a rental. And I don't think you're in position to do a rental at this point. Now, if you're looking for a longer-term guy, we know how hot you were on Maverick Bork. I think he only has 1 year. He only signed a 1 year deal, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe that's an avenue you consider going down again. What he's having a pretty decent season, I think.
He's having an okay season. I looked at his stats the other day. He's having an okay season, but he plays behind like such elite talent, though. You're like,
yeah, 52 games played this year, 8 goals, 10 assists, 18 points. He's still only 24 years old. I mean, realistically, he's probably on pace for about 30-ish points. But again, he's stuck on the third line. Maybe a higher role, a kid like him would make some sense. Trocheck, as you mentioned, it's probably going to cost an arm, a leg, and 3 fingers. That's not a name that I realistically look at. Robert Thomas, if you're going to want him, I think you unfortunately would have to do either a package around Tyson Forster or maybe even make Martone available, because that's what it's going to take to get a 1C. If it's Tyson Forster plus, maybe they look at it, because as I've stated before, I think Tyson Forster, outside of his playmaking, has a lot of Mark Stone qualities. Or if you're willing to do Martone for him, I think they'd be more inclined. But are you willing to give up your top prospect for Robert Thomas? So you got to give to get, and that's where I come in the line of overpaying. Seattle, even just to stay in that avenue, maybe Jake O'Brien, if you want to see knock on their door. That's their first round pick, though, this year. They just invested top 10 pick. So I don't know how likely that avenue is. But again, another option to look at. I think Detroit's got a handful of young centers for a team that's ready to potentially take a step. They drafted Carter Bear, right? Maybe you dangle Owen Tippett there for a guy like Carter. They drafted Carter Bear, if I remember correctly, right? I think that's where he landed. I think.
No, honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
I'm about 80%. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure, but actually, I'm going to look this up just to be on the safe side, just so I don't look like an idiot. Yes, he is with the Red Wings. Okay, good. I like Carter Bear, who, in my opinion, would have been one of the guys I would have picked with that 12th overall pick. But besides the point, if you want to go in another young center like that, possibility and a package around that, there's options. But realistically, if you ask me, do I think they're going to get one? I think this is more likely going to be an off-season thing to upgrade. I think what you see, unfortunately, most likely is what you're going to get. Maybe there's a chance you could bring in a rental, but I don't know if I want to do that. Unless there's something out of the blue catches me off guard, I think more likely than not what you see likely for the rest of the year, just because of how high the asking price is for some of these guys right now, is unfortunately what you're likely going to get. But anything else you want to add, Eric, before we move on to Tippett?
No, I'm good.
All right. So with that being said, let's do we've been bringing up Owen Tippett's name a lot in trade talks, but I think he deserves his flowers, especially after the game he had last night against Colorado. As we're recording this, Owen Tippett honestly looks like he has kind of hit another gear in recently. The last 3-4 weeks, he's looked very good. I think he's got 9 points in his last 10 games, 8 or 9 points, something like that. He's been good lately. Even dating back, he had a bit of a rough start to the year, but dating back to that St. Louis game, he's been real good. Like on the year, I think he's got, let me take a look at his, I should have probably looked at this.
He has 33 points on the year.
18 goals, 15 points, and 33 points. But dating back to that St. Louis game, he only had 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 6 points in the first 16 games of the year. So since that, he's got 27 points in the last 33 games. He's playing in the last 27 games at almost probably about a 65, 70 point pace. It's been very good. I'm going to lead this off, and I've got to say, I think one of the things, I've stated this on Twitter a few times, I'm going to say it here on the pod too. One of the things that has really stood out to me with Tippett this year is how much smarter he's playing. There's been 2 major knocks, well, 3 major knocks about Tippett's game throughout the last couple of years. One, the guy never hits the damn net. He misses the net like it's going out of style. They called him the plexiglass punisher. Suitable Elias' famous nickname for him. And, it's as much of a ball-busting joke it is, he had that issue. He was shooting, I think, less than 40% of it, or roughly 40% of his shots last year was hitting the net. It was bad.
I wrote it down. It was 44,
Where, the year before,
44.3%. We're going through. We're getting through to the net.
So this year, I think that number is significantly increased. He's shooting 14.1%. Not a massive difference from his career high in shooting percentage, but it is his career high right now. His career high beforehand was 11.7%. So it is a jump from where he was, and he looks like he's found another gear. He's probably worked on hitting the net consistently throughout the summer, but he's playing smarter. He doesn't make a lot of those boneheaded turnovers we pointed to last year. And he's got the tools, man. He really does to be a complete, even potential first-line guy. But it's about putting, this goes to point 2. He never has really put it together consistently. Hence why I always pointed to the JVR comps. He's a guy that has been good, but not good for a consistent period of time. He will go on these spurts where he puts up 14 points in 16 games. Then you fast forward the next 16 games, he's got like 5 points, and he's like a -8 and doing a lot of boneheaded plays. This year, since that point, this is a big chunk now of game. 33 games, 27 points. That's a good sample size for the kid. He has looked like a different player and a smarter player. And I've got to give him props. It is the one guy I think under Rick Tocchet that has taken a significant step forward. His career high in points going into the year is 53 points. He got that 2 years ago. This year, I think he's on pace to beat that. I think he's on pace for...
Well, he's on pace for 54.12 points.
What is it?
54.12.
54. Okay, so right above it. But another thing to point, I think he's on pace to probably sniff 30 goals for the first time in his career. If he doesn't hit it, he's going to be kind of close. So he looks like he's found his goal-scoring touch again that he had prior years. And it looks like a guy that is playing with a chip on his shoulder, guy that is leading this team by example. And when they were in that rut, he was the one guy that I could point to and say, he is playing good hockey. He's got some burst. He's got some size. He plays a smart style. I'm happy for him, and I hope that he can really continue to play with this. Give Owen Tippett his flowers. He may have been struggling earlier on, but he's really found his form lately. What do you think, Eric?
Look, I want to start by saying, first of all, I'm an Owen Tippett fan. I really like Owen Tippett. I've always really liked Owen Tippett. But at the end of the day, Owen Tippett is what Owen Tippett is. Okay? And I've said this line before. Like, there's a reason why Owen Tippett is making $6 million and not 12. Because he just seems to play half of the time. Mm-hmm. And it's just with Tippett, it's ebbs and flows. It's like he'll hit highs and then he'll but again, he's a goal scorer. That's what goal scorers do. It's like they're hot, they have these streaks where they're hot, and then they go quiet for a bit. I'm like, look, I'm gonna break down like his games this year by month, okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about. So in October, he played 10 games and he had 6 points. Okay, not bad, whatever. But the last 3 of the last 4 games in October, he went pointless. He went 3 straight games without a point. That bled into November, where the first 6 games of November, the first 6 games of November, he didn't have a point. So he basically had 1 point in 9 games. We think that's between October and November. But then he had 12 points in the last 8 games in November. So basically 14 games in November, 12 points. December, 15 games played, he had 6 points. But 4 games in a row with no points. And the month of January, no, he's been taken off in January. 11 games played, 10 points. That's the thing with Tippett. That's the exact. It's like hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and that's the thing. That's why you see on social media. Oh, I would never trade him for Shane Wright. But like, ask somebody 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, include him in the package. That's just what drives you nuts about Owen Tippett. And like, look, you're 100% right. This year, he's not making as many mistakes. He's been a lot more. His hockey IQ, I guess you could say, has improved. He's been a lot more physical. And look, he's hitting the net a bit more. He's at 50%, 50.6% of shots through percentage. So better than last year. He's on pace for 418 shots, which is more or less what he had last year. It's what drives fans crazy, but because the year before, he had like 500 something shots. He was thinking like, what rated? And it was like something like 9 point something shots per game. That's nuts. That year they hit 500 plus shots. So, but now he's more or less closer to his average. It's about 7 shots a game. I think it's like 6.9 or something. So, like, look, I really like Owen Tippett, really good player. But like I told you before, like he's on pace. This year he's on pace for 29.5 goals. That's basically his average other than last year. Last year, that down year, he only had 20. But Ross before that, 27, 28. So he's always hovering around that 30. Same thing with points. He's on pace for 54. That's pretty much, again, other than last year, pretty much right in that wheelhouse. 48, 51. I think it was those previous 2 years before that. Again, good player. This is a perfect player for your middle six. He's a perfect middle six winger. And I think you need guys like him. If you want to win a cup, you need an Owen Tippett on your third line. That's what you need if you want to win a cup. He's your Phil Kessel for Pittsburgh. He's your fucking Blake Coleman for from Tampa Bay, or your Brad Marchand from Florida. You need guys like this. But that's why when I say that, like, yes, look, if you want to trade for a center, you got to give quality to get quality. That's why when Tippett's on these highs, this is where you have to take advantage of Tippett. It's like, oh, well, look, he's got like, he's got X amount of points in X amount of games. Look at that speed. Look at the physicality. You could sell Owen Tippett on a team. You could probably sell Owen Tippett on like a Seattle or even a Buffalo. And hopefully they could give you one of their young centers that could eventually maybe get more points than an Owen Tippett. Because, yes, look, everything that Owen Tippett gives you is fine, is great. Again, I don't hate the player. I really like the player. But if he's on average about a 55-point player, maybe one day, maybe like at his peak one day, maybe this year, next year, whatever, where he's just going to go balls out, maybe he'll get 65 points and 35, 40 goals. Maybe. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it's going to be like 1 year he does that, and then it's like back to norm. So if your norm is hovering around that 55-point mark, and he's get probably like around 30 goals, which is great because you got 30 goals. But, it's like, all right, well, if we think Shane Wright, let's say, again, I'm using Shane Wright because it's like he's the name that's out there right now. But like, if you think Shane Wright is going to be, like, Shane Wright got 44 points last year. I think that was his sophomore season, but I think his rookie season, it was in and out of the line. Anyway, whatever. I think last year was his full season. He got 44 points as a 21-year-old. Okay, as a 21-year-old. So if we say that, okay, well, we don't think Shane Wright's going to be a number one center getting 90 points, but we could think he could be a number two center getting 60 to 65 points, like hovering around there. Okay, so why wouldn't I trade Owen Tippett for that? You understand what I'm saying? I'm like, because at the end of the day, center is a bigger need than wing. We have Martone coming. Martone could take Tippett's spot, And then at least you solve your center issue. Maybe not the ideal center you want, but at least it's somebody that can give you more or less what points-wise, what Tippett will get you. But, obviously he's not a winger. He might not score you 30 goals, but he'll get you 40 assists. And maybe because of that, he's going to give Mishkov 30 goals or 40 goals or whatever. So that's why I'm like, I'm willing to trade Tippett. And that's why, like, again, I'm going to repeat myself, but like you see a lot of the fans on Twitter or whatever, when he's hot, oh no, I would never trade Owen Tippett. But then he's going to go 5 games without a point or a goal, and it's like, oh man,
and the bashing will begin again.
Contract in the league. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's valid. Listen, I hope that he has found that extra gear, but honestly, he's been the JVR of this era in terms of consistency, not in terms of play. They're two completely separate stuff. JVR was a guy who attacked the net, power forward, was as slow as a slug, but really was able to eat up the greasy goals from within 5 feet. Tippett has some speed. He's got some skill. He's got some size too, but it's always been consistency issues and IQ issues. He looks like he's playing a much smarter game this year. Don't get me wrong, especially in these last 33 that I pointed out. But this is why I bring up the argument of trying to potentially use him in trade talks. And where it comes down to, it's either Owen, realistically, in terms of you're trying to get a center, you have two viable winger assets, Owen Tippett and Tyson Forster. And I'll be damned if I pick against my guy, Tyson Forster. All right. So with that being said, let's move on to next week's games. Big week this week for the Flyers. 4 games as we get close to the Olympic break. I think we got this week, next week, and then it's the Olympics, if I remember correct. I think this
we
2
have
weeks.
6 games until the Olympics.
Big week coming up. Flyers are actually getting some help today because the Islanders are down 3-0 to Buffalo. So if the Flyers win the next game we're about to start with in regulation, they're going to be right back into a playoff spot temporarily. So Flyers games next week. Home against those same Islanders, who they are 2-0 against this year. Mind you, both those wins were in shootouts, but still nonetheless 2-0 against this year. After that, Wednesday against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Have they played them this year?
I want to say yes.
Maybe once.
Not 100% sure.
They got a few teams they have yet to play this year. No, they have not. This is actually their first game against Columbus this year.
Wow.
They only played them 3 times this year. It's one of the 2 teams they only played 3 times. They haven't played Columbus yet. They haven't played Washington yet. And then after Columbus, they got Boston. They also haven't played yet this year. And then after them, they end the week with a home game against the Kings, another team they haven't played against this year. Detroit is another team they haven't played yet, and they don't play them awkwardly enough for the first time until March 28th. I don't get that scheduling, but whatever. Besides. Yeah. All right, so home versus the Isles, back-to-back road games on back-to-back nights against Columbus and Boston. Finally, end it with a home game on a matinee against the Kings on Saturday. Eric, let's hear it. What's the record prediction for the week?
Okay. Man. We just seem to struggle against the Islanders. And honestly, even Columbus.
They're 2-0 against the Isles this year. They just played boring games against the Isles.
Are we 2-0 against the Islanders? Wow.
Yeah, okay. They won both games in a shootout.
Oh, okay. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go 3-1 this week, okay? I'm going to say, I know, I guess that Colorado game is giving me a little optimism. So I say we beat the Islanders. We beat Columbus. Columbus has been playing better of late, but still they're like, mid-ish. Unfortunately, I think we lose to Boston on a back-to-back. We're going to be tired. And Boston is somehow just playing really well this year. I did not see that coming.
No.
But then I think we beat the Kings because I don't like the Kings. I have no faith in the Kings. So 3-1 this week.
You know what's crazy about Boston? They're 4th in the East in total wins, but they're currently the very last team in the playoffs right now. It's 3-2-1-0 thing is a thing. Anyway, Isles. You know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm picking another shootout win against the Isles. I'm going to keep the trend going. They win 4-3 in a shootout against the Isles. I'm going to say they lose to Columbus. They always seem like they struggle against that team. It's weird. You know, they actually, I won't say they struggle. They kind of just like very 500-ish against them. When as a team, you feel like they got that little brother syndrome against us. And they're just like that annoying little brother that won't go away. I'm going to say they lose to Columbus. Then they lose in overtime to the Bruins. And then they go belt to ass on the Kings and win that one like 5-0. I'm going to say Vladar gets a shutout that game. I'll say scores for the other two. I think they lose to Columbus 4-2. They lose to the Bruins 2-1 in overtime, and then they win 5-0 against the Kings. But yeah, Eric, any final thoughts before we wrap things up here?
Just hopefully we have this winning continues. Like we take the momentum of that Colorado game into next week. Luckily, like I said, I think there's 6 games until the Olympic break. So if we can at least get like 4 out of 6, that'd be great. Go into the little mini vacation, little mini like reset, get some guys right, and then take off second half of the season, and just talk it, man. Like, come on, like, just be better. Be better.
Stand by what you say, bare minimum.
Exactly.
Don't. This is the difference between Torts and Talk. At least Torts backed up his shit when he spoke. Talk,
yeah,
not so much.
But anyway, that's it.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
Just don't put out shit out there. Like, again, this is my opinion. Thinking that like because you have someone that you're gonna scratch in mind, and then like when the people that actually make the mistakes are guys that you like, then you do nothing about it. Like,
I can't scratch him. He's my guy.
Yeah.
Sealer, 2 penalties, nothing on him. Hathaway laugh at an empty net and then turn over the next game. That got bailed out by Urson. Can't do anything against him. Words I haven't said that much this year. Bailed out by Urson.
No, but like he goes on a rant about penalties and lazy penalties, stick penalties, blah 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 blah. Some guys are gonna have to be scratched. TK took a fucking a hooking penalty 30 seconds into the game. 30 seconds. First minute. I'm just saying.
All right. With that being said, that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode of Flyer Gonna Flyer. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate each and every one of your subs. 335 we're currently at right now. 165 away from our 500 sub goal. Also, throwing this out there, I mentioned it at the end of last week's episode. I'm going to say it again. Jim Jackson will be coming back to our pod. Live stream episode currently slated for February 16th during the Olympic break. So check that out. We're going to have him on. We're looking forward to it. JJ was a pleasure to have on the last time. Hopefully, again, it's another great episode. And hopefully, I'm sure it will be a great episode. But yeah, please, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Give us some ideas for some future episodes. We're on episode 69. Feels like we started doing this yesterday. But that's going to do it as always. You guys all take care. Have a great one. And as always, let's go Flyers.